Hello, everyone. I had my first paranormal encounter, and I want to know if it's something else or a spirit's here. The story. So I decided to use my pendulum to talk with some good spirits, and I started to ask questions to the pendulum, and it answered. I asked the pendulum if it's possible that I can get protection spirit for any amount of time, and it said yes. I talked with the spirit then, and I asked that can it give me any type of sign, and it said yes. A couple hours later, my book fell. I was on the other side of the room, and I haven't touched it that day. I didn't think much of it. I put it back, then 10 to 20 minutes later, it fell again. This time, it fell way further, like something pushed it. Then, a day later, I went to a concert, and I asked the spirit, will I get an autograph? And it said yes, and I got 2 autographs that night when I went home. I was lying in bed, and the same book fell again. I know it couldn't be me, because I have not touched it for 6+ hours. By the way, can anyone give me tips on how to talk to spirits better? Like a Ouija board or meditation? Curious Raven here. Dowsing rods are really good, and do not use a Ouija board. It is harder to control what type of spirits will enter through the Ouija board and want to stay around you, so do dowsing rods instead. So about 2 years ago, Memorial Day 2021, I was out at an Airbnb with some friends in Iowa. On that trip, we were sitting in a hot tub at night, and I saw as vividly as the person sitting next to me. An old bald man in a button-up standing underneath the deck we were near, looking at us. I asked the 6 people I was with if they could see him, as I was shocked, and they said no. I freaked out and sprinted inside. They all thought I was crazy. So did I, until I saw him briefly near the woods by the house a couple hours later. I haven't seen him since, but some weird shit has been happening. Shortly after that trip, I had a jar of olives that somehow lost all their juice overnight. I enjoy the occasional martini, which is why I noticed. There was also a morning where my bathroom sink was running when I woke up. The sink that was running was a faucet that I never turned on and a double vanity in the apartment. Shortly after my wife and I moved apartments, nothing to do with that, just so happened to move. Nothing out of the ordinary happened for about 8 months. Then one night, a glass on her nightstand started spinning, like someone had knocked into it or spun it. I tried to recreate it with pillows, knocking into it, bumping it, etc., but I couldn't recreate it. Moved again just moving into our new home about a month ago. Within the first week of moving, we had a spoon get knocked off the counter by itself. Tonight, I had the weirdest experience apart from the ghost I saw this far. Was on our deck, and our basement light turned on by itself. This light is only able to turn on via one switch, and it's not on a timer. After confirming that, there was no way me or my wife could have turned it on. I started to clear our house to make sure no one was in it. When I got to our garage, I was looking in my wife's trunk, closed the door, turned to my car to look in the window, and my car alarm went off. I was still about 5 feet away from it. There were no loud noises, and my keys were upstairs. My alarm has never gone off, ever, let alone without anything causing it. At this point, I'm freaked out beyond belief. If anyone has any idea on what this is, or what it could be, or how to deal with it, I'd be extremely appreciative. Feels like whatever this is following me, as I've had very few experiences like this to the point in my life outside of the occasional bump in the attic when I was younger. Moving is definitely not an option, as I'm in my dream home that was just purchased. thank you to everyone in advance. I've always believed in ghosts, but most of the experiences were feelings or glimpses of shadows, etc. However, I've gotten more sensitive as I've gotten older, but it seems more to do since this incident. My ex and I moved into a little flat in our local town. It was a tiny and squalid little building, but we were in our early 20s, and it was our first place. We didn't notice anything funny until after my then fiance started getting abusive, and we both began noticing this strange energy coming from the bathroom. Due to the layout of the flat, you came in through the front door into the living room kitchen, and where we set up our sofa was opposite the bathroom door. So when we were sat there, we'd get this odd feeling of being watched and this strange energy. We closed the door and felt fine, but hated using the bathroom. Over time, things would move. The bookcase we had that was solid and heavy just suddenly tipped over, and the odd one was the kettle kept switching on and off by itself, like someone was flicking the button on and off quickly. 9 to 10 times it would have happened while my ex was home, but one day it started when I was home alone. Unusually, I didn't feel frightened at all, just thought I'd make a cup of tea. Made two, set one aside, and said, "If you wanted tea, you could have just asked for it." From that day onwards, the kettle never did the flicking on and off thing again. I only began to feel the scary energy when my ex was home, and as soon as he left, I felt comfortable again. I still sensed him, but not in a negative way, like having a friend or a roommate. I'm not sure why, but I start talking to him out loud, just nattering about things, and learnt about him. Not hearing him per se, but it just came to my head like I already knew, if that makes sense. I learnt he'd been a soldier in the wars and his name was William. The rest of it was just friendly and felt such a great care and affection from this spirit. I often just referred to him as my old gentleman or lieutenant. My ex, however, referred to him as the shadow man or the dark entity. A lot of my friends felt the energy, and many non-believers ended up believing it too. They didn't seem to get the vibes of a friendly gentleman or evil shadow man, just that there was something going on. My ex and I split up and ended up moving out for a week, and I had never lived by myself before, and I thought I'd be terrified more. So with a spiritual energy, the whole time I was there, I felt safe and protected, and I hadn't slept so well in years. Unfortunately, I ended getting kicked out by my ex, and he eventually left the house too. And I regret losing that place, so I do greatly miss my old gentleman and think of him often. Since when I actually did some digging, and I learned that in my home a gentleman did live there until he died in his 70s to 80s. I can't remember the exact age as I searched it up years ago, but he was a former lieutenant in World War I and had lived in the building, and his name was William. It reassured me that my memories weren't just a delusion, but it makes me miss the very real connection we once had. This is just a few details of the 4 years I spent with him, but I felt the need to share the tale of him. Hey there, fellow Redditors. I'm here to share the spine-tingling tale of my encounters with ghostly entities. The story that will make you question the boundaries of our world. So grab a seat, turn on your flashlight, and get ready for a hair-raising adventure. It all began when I moved into this old cozy house, quiet neighborhood. Little did I know that it held secrets beyond my wildest imagination. From the moment I stepped inside, A particular energy enveloped the place, making my skin crawl. Strange things started happening. A flicker of movement from the corner of my eye, unexplained sounds echoing through the halls, and object seemingly shifting on their own. At first, I dismissed these occurrences as mere figments of my imagination, trying to rationalize them away. But as the days turned into weeks, the activity intensified, leaving me no choice but to comfort the inexplicable. Late one eerie night, while lying in bed, the silence broken only by the creaks of the house, I heard it, a whisper soft and faint, carried by an otherworldly presence. My heart skipped a beat as I strained to catch the words spoken by an unseen entity. Their voice was barely audible. It seemed to call out my name, echoing with a mix of longing and urgency. Determined to uncover the truth behind those spectral whispers, I delved into the house history. Countless hours were spent researching, speaking to the locals who knew the area well, and poring over dusty archives in search of answers. Slowly the puzzle pieces fell into place. Former resident who met a tragic end, their spirit lingering in search of resolution. Armed with this newfound knowledge, I embarked on a mission to communicate with the unseen entity, to offer solace to their restless soul. Through late-night conversations, I began to understand their pain, the unfinished business that bound them to our world. The encounters continued, growing more intense and tangible. Objects would move on their own accord, doors would slam shut with an eerie force, and an icy chill would settle in certain areas of the house. Shadows danced and flickered, seemingly alive with ethereal energy. Though fear gripped me a few times, my curiosity and comparison propelled me forward. I sought the assistance of seasoned paranormal investigators, and together we explored the depths of the house, armed with various detection devices, hoping to capture evidence of the otherworldly. Our investigations yielded chilling results: audio recordings that captured disembodied voices, whispers from behind the veil, the photographs that revealed mysterious orbs of light, their presence defying explanation and sparking wonder. Yet, amidst the chilling encounters, a deep sense of empathy grew within me. I realized that these ghostly beings were not malevolent entities, but remnants of lives once lived. They yearned for acknowledgement and understanding. With careful research and heartfelt conversations, I pieced together fragments of their stories. Each encounter brought me closer to understanding their pain and helping them find the closure they desperately sought. Now, for all you brave Redditors who wish to venture into the realm of the supernatural, I offer you a ritual, a symbolic gesture of connection with the spirits. Light a white candle in a quiet room, close your eyes, and softly speak words of compassion and understanding. Open your heart and mind to the possibility of their presence, acknowledging their existence with respect and kindness. But let me remind you, dear friends, to approach this ritual with caution and respect. The spirit world is a realm we can never fully comprehend, and it is essential to tread lightly and ensure your own safety. So, dear Redditors, if you ever find yourself face to face with the unexplained, approach it with an open mind and compassionate spirit. Within those whispers in the night, you might just catch a glimpse of the profound mysteries that surround us all. As my journey with the supernatural entities unfolded, I couldn't help but wonder if there was a way to help them find peace. I sought advice from experts in spiritual practices and discovered a ritual, ancient traditions, and personal intent, with some belief could provide closures for these restless spirits. With a mix of excitement and trepidation, I gathered my necessary items: a bundle of sage, a small vial of blessed water, and a piece of amethyst said to possess protective properties. Taking a deep breath, I entered the most active area of the house, the room where I felt the strongest presence. In the dim light, I lit the bundle of sage, letting the fragrant smoke fill the room. With each waft, I visualized negative energy dissipating, and a calming aura enveloping the space. I sprinkled a few drops of blessed water around, symbolizing purification and renewal. As the room became infused with this delicate scent of sage, I held the amethyst in my hand, feeling its cool energy grounding me. With a steady voice, I spoke words of compassion and release, addressing the spirits that resided within the house. I acknowledged their pain, expressed my willingness to help, and offered them the freedom to move on from their earthly attachments. Profound stillness settled in the room, as if the very air held its breath. The sensation of being watched eased, replaced by a sense of serenity, which it was the power of the ritual, or a shift in the spirit's energy. I may never truly know, but in that moment I felt a gentle, intangible presence. The weight of unresolved emotions lifted, replaced by gratitude. In the days that followed, the paranormal activity gradually subsided. The once restless spirit seemed to find solace and begin to fade into the ethereal realm that they belonged to. The house, once fraught with their lingering presence, now felt lighter, more peaceful. Reflecting on my experiences, I realized that the ritual was not a definite solution for every haunting. Each encounter with the supernatural is unique, and finding resolution may require a diverse range of approaches. The ritual served as a catalyst, an opportunity for understanding the healing to take place. So, dear Redditors, should you ever find yourself immersed in a world of unexplained phenomenon, remember that compassion, respect, and open mindedness can bridge the gap between our realm and the supernatural. Explore with caution, seek wisdom, and above all, let empathy be your guide. In sharing my story, I hope to inspire others to embrace the unknown, to look beyond the veil of our perceived reality, and to approach the mysteries of the paranormal with a sense of wonder and genuine connection. May your own journeys into the realm of the supernatural be filled with profound experiences, intriguing discoveries, and most importantly, a deep appreciation for the interconnectedness of our world with both seen and unseen. Myself, 15 Mel, lived with my parents. A few weeks ago, I was in my room with the door opened. I was brushing my hair and I noticed something peeking from my door from the mirror. I turned around, but then it was gone. Nobody in my house at this point of time. I was home alone. I didn't think nothing of it. About 2 days later in the morning, I was in the bathroom brushing my teeth with the door open. In the corner of my eye, I see something sprint across the hallway. I immediately leave the bathroom and grab my stuff for school and leave the house. Now I'm horrified about what this thing is. About a week later, it's a new day and I completely have forgotten about what happened. Come home from school and do my homework in my room. I go and grab a drink from the kitchen. Come back to my room and my homework part is torn in half. Keep in mind, there is nobody home. Now I don't know what to do. This is another story from my mom, though this time it's from when she was a teen. When my mom was around 15, she had lived in Germany for a few years. Her and her parents lived in a 3-story old brick house, though this was a rental house which they were only going to be living in for a small amount of time. One night when my mother went to bed, she tossed and turned, unable to go to sleep for some reason. She didn't know why. She had a horrible gut feeling. She finally decided to sit up in bed knowing that something was definitely wrong, though before she decides to go to her parents' room, she sees a figure standing outside her window. The outline of a man with the only thing that can be probably made out was the fact that this man had red eyes. My mother wanted to scream for a second, but then something hit her. Her room was on the 3rd floor of the house. There was no way anyone could be standing outside her window, unless they had gotten a ladder and climbed it. But the noise surely would have woken the whole house up. If not, at least she would have noticed something, and my mom told her not to get up and just to lay back down and pretend to be asleep, as if she didn't see anything. As much as she wanted to go running to her parents' bedroom, something deep down was sending off alarms telling her not to. The whole night my mom laid in bed, unable to get up, but unable to fall asleep due to pure fear overtaking her. She waited until the sun was shining before she looked back over to the window. The man was no longer there. She sighed in relief, though she was still unable to go back to sleep, so she got up and walked to her parents' bedroom, where she woke them both up and told them what happened. My grandfather, her dad, walked to my mom's room, though him and my grandmother didn't really believe, my mom thinking she was just having a bad dream or something. He told her it was nothing and that no one could have been at her window since they were way too far up from the ground. My mom begged my grandparents to believe her, saying she wasn't able to sleep all night nor get up to tell them about it, though they still didn't believe her. 2 weeks goes by, and my mother had only seen the man at her window 5 other times, though she felt like she was being constantly watched in the neighborhood. She kept telling her parents, though each time they didn't believe her, saying she was imagining it. Then, whenever my grandparents were visiting with a next-door neighbor, my mother's so-called nightmares were brought up to my grandparents to this lady. The lady went pale as a ghost, and the moment my grandfather described the man my mother had described to them at that time before in the last week, the lady said it was a spirit that had been around for decades, just standing outside of young girls' rooms watching them. No one knew why or when the first time the spirit had arrived. When it did, it never left. Most of the neighbors believed it to be an evil spirit who would prey on the young girls, and once it had its eyes on its next victim, the girl would go crazy seeing the man everywhere they go in the neighborhood. Though it was just a rumor, this was enough to make my grandparents freak out and move out of the rental as quickly as they could, which luckily was extremely quick since they had just moved in, and most of the boxes hadn't even been unpacked yet. This had to be one of the more creepy stories my mom had told me, though many people would see it as too bad. My mom was terrified, even when telling the story, which she won't do often. You can tell she gets freaked out occasionally. This is just another one of those memorable stories my mom told me. Since my last one, The Man in My Nursery, seemed to be a hit, I decided to share this one too. Hopefully you guys like this story. I must have been 7 to 8 years when I had my first and probably the only encounter with supernatural. My father got transferred at his job, so around 7 to 8 we moved to a rented place. Our landlord seemed sweet and helpful at first, but they were not like that at all. After a week or so, my mother started feeling uncomfortable in the house. Things would fly off the shelf on their own. Once a glass broke on my mom's hand and it made a cut as if someone deliberately cut my mom's hand. Our landlord's wife used to talk nicely with my dad, saying stuff like our family's the best, but would go tell my mom that we need to leave, as we are not welcome. Right after my dad would leave for work, she was trying to drive a wedge between my mom and my dad. Things started to go a bit south, but we also did our research. Then the entire horrific story came out, including black magic. Before us, there was a couple that used to live in the same house. The landlords would play the same game with them like they played with my mom and dad. This led to a huge fight between the couple, and the wife literally killed herself by burning herself alive. The situation worsened as the landlord's wife used to do black magic. She used black magic control the guy and brainwashing the man into not believing his own wife. It has been said that the husband was so brainwashed that he did nothing to save his wife and watched her burn alive right in front of him. When we came in, we knew nothing and moved right in. After my mom had started experiencing things, I started seeing things as well. I used to see a Batman action figure everywhere at night, even on my bed, when I didn't even have an action figure back then. I was a car kid always. Once I saw a giant doll in front of my cabinet. It was like 5 to 6 feet tall. It was there all night. It was as if something wanted us out of the house. I don't know whether it was the woman who died or because of the black magic we were seeing things, but was a very strong and obvious presence. I am 30 now, but we still sometimes visit that house, and now it's empty. Even the landlords have sold off the place and went elsewhere. No new renter was able to live there for more than 2 months. We lived there for not more than 4 months.
I live inside my own world of make-believe. Kids screaming in the cradles, profanities. I see the world through ice covered in ink and bleach. Cross